Hello, my friends, and welcome to Perfect Practice. You'll notice that I'm outside. It's a beautiful day here in Toronto, and I'm interviewing a beautiful friend of mine, somebody who I've been anticipating interviewing for a very long time. And that day has finally come. And to no surprise of mine, it's a beautiful day outside. The clouds have parted here in Toronto, and I am interviewing and getting to share with you today, my dear friend, Ian Clark. Ian, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Sachin, I appreciate you having me here. It's been a while, and it is a beautiful day out here too. I'm in Coburg, looking out across Lake Ontario, and it's just one of those really beautiful springtime days.
Yeah, what a wonderful day for a conversation about health, happiness, wholeness. Uh, I want to give a little bit of backstory of how we know each other, and then certainly dive into the questions I have for you. So we've met many times over the years, and it's funny we tend to meet somewhere else in the world besides Ontario. So
Right.
we've met, we just recently met in Miami. We've met in Phoenix at Michael Fishman's event, and we've gotten to know each other many times over many dinners and conversations where you're oftentimes sharing just completely mind-blowing information when it comes to health, the stuff that you don't hear on any other podcast, the stuff that you don't read about in books, and certainly the stuff that they don't teach you in school. And every time I walk away from a conversation, I'm like, man, I wish I recorded that. I wish I recorded that. So today's my chance to record our conversation and to have you share some of the profound wisdom that you bring to the world and share with the people that you help and support. And also, I'd love to spend a little bit of time highlighting the work that you do with activation products, because these are phenomenal products that our healthcare practitioners can also utilize, and they're developed with your knowledge and wisdom and resources at the heart and center of them as well. So thank you again for being here, and appreciate our friendship. And I know those of you who are listening today, you're really in for a treat. You'll get a clinical breakthrough. I know Ian's going to probably share some business breakthroughs with us, and it's going to be really fun to tap into his wealth of knowledge. So let's get right into it. You good to go, Ian?
Good to go.
All right, awesome. So how about we start with your origin story? What kind of inspired you to get into health and wellness?
Well, it was more or less by default. About 2004, I was living in Toronto and had a series of different health issues that came up that were life-threatening. One was a tumor in my perineum, which was growing rapidly, and the doctors just wanted to cut it out. And it was also involving heart disease symptoms, plus liver problems I didn't know I had right at that time. But long story short, it was just a lot of dangerous things that were taking place. And I was only 46 years old. So I didn't understand why that would be happening. My brother, who was a medical doctor in North Bay, Ontario for 30 years, got involved in it because it was serious. He was never my doctor, but I would get consulting from him. And he told me, you are genetically predisposed to this kind of thing. You look like Uncle Don. My Uncle Don on my mom's side, he died at 51 of cancer in 1978. His older brother, my Uncle Bob, died 2 days before him
Hmm.
in September 1978 of cancer as well. But I didn't look like him. But anyway, my brother was convinced 100% that it was genetic predisposition that people face in his world. And he had had thousands of patients come through his clinic with 11 doctors who worked with him. So he had seen a lot. And everything I was told by doctors in Toronto about the barbaric things they wanted to treat me with, and my brother's information basically told me there was no hope in going that direction because it didn't help me. I wasn't interested in genetics. I really wasn't. I just thought, well, that doesn't help me. So I watched my uncles do everything the doctors said in the medical world in 1978, and they passed away within a year, one within 3 months, one within a year. But the one that didn't get diagnosed till later, he looked fine. The other one went down to a skeleton.
Hmm.
And I thought, what was the point of that? Like they went to people who were supposed to help them with their health. They told them they're going to die. They said, you're going to die way sooner if we don't help you. And then they did stuff and then they died anyway. And I thought, here we are in 2004. Certainly there have to be way more advanced ways of looking at health from a medical standpoint than there was 1978 back in the dark ages. But it really was only 26 years later. And so it's 20 to 46 and whoa, it's my turn, but I don't want it to be my turn. And so my questions were always why do I have what I have? And they would always dismiss that and just say, like, this, we do these things all the time. This happens to everybody. It happens all the time in men in their 40s. Just get with the program. And so I woke up one morning and I realized there have to be people on the earth somewhere who have profoundly deep knowledge of how to approach things from a more natural standpoint, who would maybe know why I had these things going on. Because I wasn't really unusually different. I wasn't drinking. I didn't touch alcohol since I was 21. I stopped smoking cigarettes when I was 21. I wasn't doing drugs. My lifestyle was like a family man. We had 7 children, and our youngest was only 6 that year.
Mm.
And this huge responsibility. Plus, I had a business failure that year where it was an unfortunate situation where I was put into bankruptcy. It was my doing per se, but it was kind of circumstantial. Here in Toronto, like where the cost of living is so high, and it was an intense situation. So I realized I have nothing left to lose. Let's just find out if there's a different way. And I asked to be led, and like a spiritual leading, to where I would be directed to people because I wouldn't know who they were, how to find them. I mean, how do you do that? It's like a needle in a haystack. Where do you start? I mean, the health food store, where do you begin? And it was so serious. And I really just felt like laying down and dying. That's what I felt like. But that was not an option. That's like a sucky way out. And I think a lot of people take that route if this just gets too overwhelming. And fortunately, I started to be led to one person and then another, just very slowly. And I had about 3 years of a runway to get this sorted out before I'd be out of here. And I thought if I could use the 3 years to get 5 or 6 years or 7 years, that would be good. And that's kind of the way it went. I just started learning enough. I found out that, okay, I've got huge fungal infections. I have major heavy metal overload, mostly lead, from when I worked in the oil field for 17 years and got exposed to it so heavily. I had yeast overgrowth that was off the charts. It blew out so hard that the whole bottom of my entire torso was all the way just white crystal. And then chemical overloads and on it goes. So I just was told, okay, you got to do this, this, and this. You got to start detoxing these things, and let's see what this will do for you. And surely, but slowly but surely, it did work. And it took about 7 years to go from the tumor to that completely dissolving itself out of my body. It grew a lot during that time. I'm not going to get into the gory details, but it was bad. And it was scary, but I just refused to subscribe to the fear factor of it, just knowing that I didn't want to do what the doctors did anyway, and they just wanted to cut everything out. And it did slowly disappear, and it was a phenomenal experience and journey that way. And after the first 3 years, I found out about a nutritional molecule that is called marine phytoplankton. And that was in 2007. And all I knew is that when I consumed it, and nobody had heard of it at that point, I started consuming it, and it just made me feel like the battery in my body was charging up. And that's all I could explain to people. I go, I don't know, but all I know is if you take it, and as sick as I was, it still made me feel good. And they were, okay, let's try that. Well, the people in Canada at that time were turning their nose up at it really badly. And that directed me, that was actually a good thing, because that sent me down to California. And in 2007, I went to 2 different events, and some hippies down there took an interest, and they loved it. They tried it. They go, is this stuff even legal or what? Because are you supposed to be able to feel this good? And I said, well, there's no stimulants. It's just food. It's a nanonutrient. And that began our little company at that time out of the basement of our house. And we did 2.8 million in sales out of our basement between 2007 and the end of 2009, just by shipping stuff through Canada Post to California and people buying it down there. We didn't even sell it. We were just providing it to people who were then selling it to their groups. There was no marketing strategy. We didn't even have a company set up. And when that happened, we got about 800,000 of that money that went into a bank account in that time frame. And I just looked at the money and go, well, what is that for? We don't need that level of money. What is it for? And then I realized it's for research, is what it's for, to find out more. If this is cool, is there more stuff? And so that's what we used it for. We didn't take the money, and we would have been taxed on it anyway if we would have taken it. And we just used it very wisely. And then that turned into, till now, about $100 million, because the 100 million revenue came in based on learning more about protocols, learning more about the real things that make the body work better. And we developed a small product line. And of that money, about 40 million was reinvested into more learning. And that's been 17 years now. So it's just been an interesting journey. So, I'm just here to share what I've learned as far as the major components are.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And that's my first time hearing the whole story unpacked. I've heard pieces and components of it. So I appreciate you sharing. And, there's so much that we can double click on there. So one of them being the business lessons that you learned. Um, what I'm curious about is going back even before you discovered the first health challenge that you had. What profession were you in prior to that? Were you in, you said you had lost a business or you had gone through bankruptcy. I'm just curious about the way your mind worked more so than anything else to be able to think the way you did to get through the challenge that you did. Because most people's minds would have led them in a completely different direction. So I'm curious as to where that strong mind and will to live comes from.
Well, yeah, it sort of was developed in me from working in the oil field, actually. So I was supposed to go to university like all my older brothers and sisters who had their doctorates and everything else. And I hitchhiked out to Alberta when I turned 18 years old, literally the day after I turned 18, had a great big huge afro. And I hitchhiked out to Edmonton, Alberta, Red Deer, Alberta first. And I just went to work for the summer on the oil rigs thinking that would be a cool thing to do for fun. And then come back to university the following fall. And I just never got back. I fell in love with the oil field. Like I just thought it was so much fun. Very high paced, really big equipment, seriously good money for a young kid to make. And I just got into that thing. But out there, you don't have no for an answer. When you are facing life-threatening obstacles at work, and you're literally potentially sacrificing your life for a company, which is unbelievable mindset. Like who does that? Life and limb. And this happens all the time. It's a very dangerous environment. And I remember just going through this thing where I finally realized that no is not an option. If you have to get something done, you are going to get it done. You might even get beaten up by somebody if you don't. So it was just a very strange environment. And it wasn't good for my personality in some respects because it's a toxic environment. It's extremely demanding. There's brutal people working in that industry, especially back then. There were no safety concerns. You didn't have all the super safety requirements they have today in those industries because of all the lawsuits. So it just made me realize that you just get things done. You just don't accept the status quo. You don't, it's the strangest thing. And so there was character formed in that 17-year period that gave me an internal resilience. Some people called it a fire that seemed like it was 40,000 degrees hot, which they didn't necessarily like if they were on the receiving end of that. And I'm just a small person. I'm not a big tough guy. I never was. But there was a mental and emotional strength that came from that I didn't accept most things as a no. Right. So that was the beginning of that.
Oh, I love that. I've known you as the healthy version of yourself, the bio-optimized version of yourself. And I know you have very unique opinions on certain things because you come from a place of, research, evidence, doing things yourself. And sometimes these things can seem um, either really, really simple or to the person who's new to them, like very insanely crazy, right? So there's like a spectrum. And one of the
Right.
first things, if I may share, one of the first times we met, and I had a chance to be on the receiving end of one of your interventions, was you had this rubber hand, and
Mhm.
you we slapped it on the back of my knees. Me and Joe Polish, actually, it's funny. I still
Right.
remember the day we went back to the hotel room and we were slapping the inside of our elbows and the back of our knees. And later on that night, it was a little bit uncomfortable, but later on that night, everything turned black. And
Mhm.
2 days later, it dissipated. It wasn't a bruise. So it wasn't like, a bruise when somebody punches you or you bump your knee or something like that. It was black. And I
Mhm.
love to describe that process and what exactly is coming out of us or what exactly is boiling to the surface when you did that. And you'll have to excuse me, I don't recall the name of the therapy, but I do remember the event quite distinctly.
Yeah, well, the name of the therapy, I've coined a name after doing it for many years. It's bioregenerative release. There are some Chinese terminologies around that as well, that because it comes from classical Chinese medicine, not traditional, which of course predates everything. It involves no skilled practitioner or any kind of diagnostic. It just simply heals the body directly
Hmm.
through the treatment. It may reveal that there's a problem, but it doesn't matter because the problem's going to go away. And that was the first master key that I was ever handed in November the 1st, 2017. That was the first realization that there are master keys. Because, you and I, we go through the world of, we see all the remedies, all the symptoms, all the health problems, and people are looking for the keys, the remedies, and there's thousands of them. And then when you go above that, there are master keys that remove the actual problem itself, and then you no longer need those remedies. And this
Hmm.
is one of them. So that was the early on. You received the first novice level of that bioregenerative release. And it's based upon percussion, frequency, and vibration, tapping into the meridians. And that's to get access to your organ function, which has a profound effect upon you. And the treatments, they can be painful. They can cause swelling and bruising and burning. But when you're healthy, they don't cause that whatsoever. So I always tell people these treatments don't cause that. They only reveal if there's a problem.
Hmm.
And so it just does that. And since then, I've helped hundreds of people. I've never charged a dime for it because I was given it free. So I just show people for free. And we have a little thing now called the activator that people can buy. It's $35, lasts a lifetime. And they just have to build up their courage to realize that the body is going to respond very, very positively from these treatments. It's going to seem a little bit negative to start with. But since then, I've also healed all the injuries that were in my body, serious injuries, chronic injuries, and even acute injuries. Like I had a torn rotator cuff and it was healed immediately within 5 minutes, right after it was torn, like within 12 hours. And
Hmm.
normally you wouldn't want to touch an injury right away with the treatment until it kind of heals a bit. In this case, you can go right at it. Sprained ankles, doesn't matter what it is, even broken bones. But I was able to heal injuries I'd had, like in my left knee for 39 years, where I could never water ski or snow ski during that time. I even had to be careful going down a set of staircases to the left. If I twisted my knee, it would blow up like a basketball for a week. And the pain, the residual pain in my knee continued to increase over my lifetime until it was absolutely unbearable to sit in a theater or an auditorium if I couldn't have my legs straight. And I'd have to leave in 20 minutes. So I took that, and within 40 minutes of treatment, so there were 8 5-minute treatments, my knee got completely healed in a week. Like 1 week later, I got a perfect knee. And then 6 months later, because I could use my knee properly, it got strong. That's when the lights went on and went, okay, this is way deeper than what
Hmm.
I understood. And then since then, I've helped so many people with all their major joint issues. People have knee problems a lot. Knee replacements are usually the first thing, and then hip replacements. But all those are gone. Like you don't need those anymore. This completely stimulates the body to heal itself because the treatment doesn't heal anything. It just releases all the poison blood, all the dead cells, all the nano razor blades that we've been breathing our whole life. And it gets the opening of all the pathways that the body is going to need to get back at that joint or that piece, a part of the body. And it stimulates stem cell production because it's creating a trauma site. And so the 5 minutes that people go through, they don't like it. But once it's over, it's like, oh, that wasn't that bad. I always get, well, it wasn't that bad. And then they do another one, then another one. And the more you do, the more courage you get, the more resilient you get. And you realize that pain is only inside your body being released, not being caused by the treatment. Because I could go back to many places of my body today and do intense treatments I've shown people many times, and nothing at all happens. And they're like, how is that even possible? And then as soon as you treat them at all, they're like, whoa, and it's blowing up on them. So it just shows, it just is a very important master key to release our entire bodies so they can have a chance to really heal rapidly.
Yeah, it was quite amazing to see, because when you're doing on us, you were just tapping, you had this rubber hand, and I imagine that's what you're referring to as the activator.
Yes.
And it, and just gently going on my arm, I could feel it. And then you were just like really slapping your arm and your knee. I recall that. I'm like, holy smokes, like this stuff, you got to do it over a period of time, as you mentioned, but it was quite profound, how hard you were able to slap yourself, and the transformation that took place for you. So uh, staying in line with kind of the master keychain, if you will, what are some of the other master keys that you've discovered?
Well, one of the big master keys that it came in around 2022 was the raw material our body requires in order to produce a greater volume of clean blood. So our body produces blood 24 hours a day, of course, with our bone marrow. The older we get, the more the bone marrow converts from red to yellow, the less stem cells we produce, and the less quality of blood, the less quantity of blood. So when you consume unrefined sea salt in water at a very specific amount, like if you went to go drink ocean water, it's way too strong, it's 35 grams of salt per liter. We're talking 7 times less, which is 5 grams a liter. And it has to be a broad spectrum unrefined sea salt. It's an actual simple mathematical reality. And when I started to do it, I started to do other measurements. It kind of woke me up to other things. Why does our bone marrow convert from red to yellow as we get older? Is it just because we're getting older? Or is it a lack of raw material? Like if we started at 20 and we gave ourselves the raw material nutritionally that our body needs to produce good, clean blood and keep our bone marrow dark red, would it stay red? The answer is yes. But nobody told us. So we were eating food that was depleted of minerals thousands of years ago. We think that the minerals have been depleted because of monoculture. No, that's not the reason. Of course, that depletes it, but that's not the reason. The reason because rain has been falling on the earth for thousands of years, and that's distilled water. It's extremely hungry solvent, very powerful, and it has washed all the minerals out of the soil where our food grows, where the grass grows for all the animals, and so on. And it washed it into the water table below, out into the streams, rivers, and tributaries, and ended up in the ocean. So those are minerals that we absolutely have to have, because you are a salt being. Cry a tear, taste it. Sweat, taste that. You're a very salty being. And when you drink straight water, that will dilute you because it's removing the precious electrolytes out of your body that you're not even getting enough of to start with through your food. So I found out there was a 20-year study, which was all privately done. Nothing has ever been published on it. But I knew people who had been a part of that, and they had results. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try that. Let's see what happens. So I started drinking the salt water at 5 grams melted in and 3 liters a day. So a male is generally like 3 liters a day. Females are 2 liters. And I went through a whole roller coaster. I started having liquid bowel movements for 3 months. All this black stuff came out. What is that? Oh, that's the dirty blood that my body can eliminate. That's a lot of dirty blood. And my lymphatic system was able to dump into the clean blood, making it dirty again. The cellular toxins were dumping into the clean blood when they saw a clean river for the first time. It was like, how come there's a clean blood flow? And my kidneys and my liver got all cleaned out. I did literally cleaned the filters, all the organs of my body cleaned out. I went through a short period of high blood pressure, what would be called high blood pressure. I wasn't concerned at all. I was always 115 over 65 in that realm most of my adult life. Even when I was unhealthy, I never had a blood pressure thing. And then I went up to 180 over 120 for 4 solid months drinking this salt water. And everybody was, of course, if you have lots of salt, you're going to get high blood pressure. Not the case, because I kept drinking it, and 8 months later, my blood pressure was back to normal again. So why did it do that? Well, because my volume of blood is trying to push it through a 64-year-old body at that point. So I turned 66 this June. So it started like almost 2 years ago in October 2022. And it's pushing through a body that is full of hypertension. And I'm supposed to be this health guy. What am I doing with hypertension? Well, that's weird. Obviously I have it, because if my blood pressure is at 180 over 120 consistently, like over that 4-month period, whenever I checked it, something's up. And then I realized it's all the air we're breathing. So the air you breathe has all these massive quantities of nanoparticulate matter which is called particulate matter, comes from tire dust and brake dust and cremated bodies and all the stuff that's polluting our environment in the nano realm. You can't see, taste, or smell, but it's very measurable. How do you measure it? In the United States, they figured out in 1 year period, there's around 10 billion pounds of tread dust that is released to the atmosphere a mile and a half above the highways because there's no rubber on the road. And the tires are made of rubber, cotton, epoxies, resins, plastics, metals, and chemicals. And that's pretty nasty stuff. And then they're cremating all the bodies in the neighborhoods. There's 164,000 people dying every day. That's releasing the entire nanoparticulate matter out of that entire body out the stack because there's no filter fine enough to catch those particles. So now we're rebreathing all the cremated bodies, which I think is completely ridiculous. And then there's brake dust, and there's about 1,000 things in the air. So we can't change that. I don't think there's anybody going to change that anytime soon. But I was able to get all that accumulated garbage out of my system within the first 12 months. But it did take some persistence. I wasn't worried about the high blood pressure because I knew that my blood system would become vascularly elastic again, like I was when I was young. And sure enough, it did. And I could drink just as much salt water as I want. Blood pressure is normal. And I had a 20-year-old assistant at the time drinking, well, she was actually 19, drinking salt water in volume for the first few months, and her blood pressure didn't change. She was an athlete. It never changed at all. I mean, of course it wouldn't change. You could produce way more blood. You're fully elastic, and it's just going to be perfect. So that was a master key that had many other implications. Because for gut health, for your hydrochloric acid in your stomach, the raw material from the sea minerals are feeding that hydrochloric acid to get really powerful digestion. So then the whole digestion picture changed. My entire digestive system got super clean, and all the friendly bacteria was great. All the parasites, they can't survive that. They're gone. I mean, I've done some other protocols that are supposed to do a colon cleanse, and what I put in came out within 12 hours. Everybody else did 3-4 days and had these 18-foot bowel movements. I got nothing. So it's all physical manifestation of these master keys that you have to measure and you can monitor.
Yeah, you're a part of my life every day because you actually gave me salt and I drink that salt every single day. So thank you for your constant generosity. You're always sharing not only your wisdom, but you're the type of guy that would give the shirt off his back if it would help the other person. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
What other master keys can you offer us?
Well, there's a big one. I call this a master key. This is not necessarily going to be very popular. It's definitely not well known. As you know, you and I get exposed to pretty much everything, right? We've seen every diet, every protocol, every modality, every technology. What have we not seen? And I have to laugh at myself sometimes because sometimes I think I get it figured out. And instead of just, no, Ian, you're not the one supposed to be figuring this out, okay? I'm not a researcher. I have no credentials. I'm not a doctor. I'm just like a high school grad. That's it, which is kind of interesting. And so I was looking at all the diets, like I've done every diet imaginable. And I didn't just try them, I did them. Like 4.5 years of raw vegan, like strict raw vegan, all organic, right? And then a couple of years of like macrobiotic or paleo or carnivore or keto. And because I'm not restricted by any religious things, which is fine if people are. I'm not against any of that. People have a reason for doing what they do. But I'm just this freewheeling kind of person that could do anything and didn't restrict myself. And at the end, I thought I'd figured it all out. The one thing I did learn along the way, which was valid information, is if you mix glucose with fat, it's a recipe for disaster. It's just not good. And if you have just only carbs, glucose type diet, and that's all you have, that's one way to go. But you're going to be dealing with your insulin. There's going to be that little bit of a chase of insulin, glucose. At least you're not going to have fat blocking the insulin's ability to drive the glucose into the cells for energy. And I started doing some research and I found out that 8 decimal places of the 9% of the population is running on glucose for fuel. And glucose converts to glycogen. And glycogen stores up in your organs and your muscles and your tissue as a bank account. And if you're very diligent and you're like a real fit person and very healthy, you can get between 8 and 10,000 calories of glucose built up in your body as a bank account.
Hmm.
And then that's pretty significant because, you know, you get these people doing like Ironman and triathletes and all this stuff where they're really exerting themselves for even 8 or 10 hours. They need that power and they're just whipping through it. They got all this glycogen. They're amazing, right? They can sprint and go and keep going, and then they burn out. And the glucose is a fuel that burns very hot. It burns fast, it burns hard, and then it burns out. And so that's one way to go. You know, there's a lot of people successfully doing that, but it has a tax attached to it because it's got a burn rate, very inflammatory type of fuel.
Hmm.
And then I found out that you can actually use fat for fuel and no glucose at all, like zero. And the difference is profound because your body, in this slim and trim little body I'm standing in, which is building incredibly good quality muscle, it stores 100,000 calories of fat, not just 10,000, 100,000. And you're not overweight. It stores in all your cells and organs and everywhere. And that will allow you to do a 100-mile marathon and not run out of energy. The interesting thing about that fuel is that it burns cool, it burns slow, and it burns long. And it doesn't just burn out. It has a very tapered down effect. It causes no inflammation whatsoever when you're using that energy. As soon as you combine the fat again with glucose, you got a problem. That's a disaster. That's a recipe for disaster, a recipe for disease. And now my body is completely, and I never figured this out, but I was shown from a 35-year study that when you go to the 100% fat for fuel, everything dramatically changes in the sense that not only is your body going to have really clean energy throughout the day, and you're going to have zero inflammatory response. My whole hormonal system came online like I've never experienced in my life before. I'm now producing testosterone at the level of a 25-year-old, whereas I was not producing hardly any testosterone before this. My male functionality back fully. And I was dealing with the prostate issue with the salt water that was helping a lot because I had a typical enlarged prostate, by the time I was 60. I noticed that diminished a lot just drinking the salt water, but cleaning things out. But then it went completely away when I went to fat for fuel as my 100% of my fuel. And the other weird thing is that my food bill has dropped by 90%, but I'm eating the most concentrated, dense, nutritional foods that you can get. They're all very pure and they're super healthy. And then everything else just continues to change. Hormonally, I have access to leptin for the first time in my life. And I'm seeing all the differences with that. Deeper sleep, better brain function. I'm excited talking on the call today, so I'm probably talking too fast, but normally that's, it's chill because I'm in parasympathetic 95% of the time. And that's where you want to be as much as you can, except for when you got to get something done. And that has been, I would say, the master key. There are other master keys we can talk about that involve oxygen to the cells and, different other aspects of our life, autophagy, the proper, and you're very familiar with those things. Breathing. I mean, you're one of the most advanced people I've ever met who talks about breathing, and you just made it so simple. And then the whole, I think breathing is a master key without a question of a doubt, and getting that autonomic nervous system dialed in, as well as calming the whole system down energetically. So this one is the big one, what I just talked about was the fat for fuel.
I love that. So just for clarity purposes, when you say fat for fuel, the first thing that comes to mind is a ketogenic diet, which is, usually very low carbs and mainly fat and protein. So what's like a typical meal or a day of food look like for you under ideal conditions, of course?
Right. Well, it's consistently always the same. The one thing on this particular note, I am under a It's a proprietary thing. So I'm under a non-disclosure as far as the actual stuff is concerned. There's a bunch of reasons, but it's not that I'm trying to hide anything from anybody. Anybody can find out about this, but it has to be through a certain channel. But it is, let's put it this way, it's not low carb at all. So I drink as much alcohol in this diet as I want. How much alcohol do you think I want to drink? Take a guess.
0.
Exactly. There's no restrictions. This is just pure hydration here. So it's not low carb. It is 0 net carbs, 100%. It is a small amount of protein. As you know, when you eat more protein than what your body needs, which is about 3/4 the size of the palm of your hand, that immediately turns to glucose because your body doesn't need that much. Even if you take a protein supplement, it's going to convert to glucose. And so you have to know the science behind that. The fat has to be extremely dense, high quality. I eat so little food. So within the first 3 weeks of getting into this, I went from, I know my ideal weight's around 155 to 160. You know, whenever I've done other things in the past, if I wasn't watching closely, my weight would cruise at 180. But I really didn't look that much bigger. And within 3 weeks, I went straight to 160 and stayed right there, and I've been there ever since. I'm just right at 160. Don't lose weight, don't gain weight. Most of that was fluid because I didn't know that for every gram of glycogen, there are 3 grams of retained fluid attached. So I was like, oh, okay. So I got rid of the glycogen. So it was just like, zoom, 20 pounds. I was, whoa, okay, that was fast. I didn't really change much. My waist is about the same. I think I did get one more notch on my belt. But I noticed my muscle strength and endurance is far superior now. And I eat 3 meals a day. When you're on a glucose for fuel diet, you have to intermittent fast. It is a must. You got to give your body a break. It does not want to constantly have to deal with that glucose issue. And even the ketogenic diets, they're saying they're glucose, definitely producing glucose in the ketogenic. Even though they talk about low carb, we're talking about 0 net and knowing how to get there. And so there is 0 fasting allowed in this. The moment you fast, you're going to throw yourself into a bit of cortisol, a little bit of famine. Your body is like, what's going on? You're going to come out of parasympathetic. You're going to be a little bit jittery. Intermittent fasting is a no-no in this particular thing. And you don't need it at all because there's no inflammatory response whatsoever from the fat that's burning for fuel. And yeah, you don't need to think about weight loss and muscle gain. You're going to gain more muscle than you've ever gained in your life as far as quality muscle, not big bulky stuff at all. Because when you don't have the glucose, the muscles build like that. When you have the glucose, the lactic acids and those things go in there and they tear up the muscles and they make them bigger. So a bodybuilder is going to get bigger with all the scar tissue. There's 0 scar tissue. So the muscles are far stronger building like this than like this. And that's so just a dynamic paradigm shift. And then your body just keeps getting healthier every day. So, you're in your profession, and everyone listening, your professions are the goal is to get everyone you're dealing with and yourself a little bit healthier every day into the future. Whereas the sliding scale of everybody getting a little bit less healthy as they get older, especially when they hit 50, 60, 70, then they're on a really sliding scale. And you're really having to do a lot of stuff to kind of maintain at least some health. That's the paradigm. What we're talking about is forget that. You're going to get healthier every single day into the future for I don't have no idea how long. What I do know is that a chain is only strong as the weakest link. And we always know that. It's an analogy. If you have a weak link, you could die very quickly. Just, at 80, 90, 100 years old. You can't have any weak links. And the thing that always astounded me is that in this 20-year journey, I would meet some of the most advanced people who I was like, they were just a wealth of knowledge about health. And then 15 years in, they're dead. It's like they died. Why did that person just die? They were I really respected them because one of their links was weak and they didn't know. They might have only had one master key. They didn't have 5 or 7 or however many there actually are, which is a number, but not very many. And they just didn't have one. And they didn't think they needed it because they had it all figured out because they were the researcher. And so then I was like, okay, so what we have to do is just let that chill out. Don't freak out, but I don't want to be having a weak link. And I know you don't. You're one of the most advanced health people I've ever met. You're disciplined, you're diligent, you're open. You're like an open book ready to do, okay, what do we do next? And then share that with people. That's why you have such a leadership going on right now, because you can't fake that stuff. That's what's happening. I've watched you develop over the years, and it's been really cool to see it. So to have this opportunity to share with you and your tribe, the people who are counting on you, is a big deal.
Thank you, Ian. That means a lot to me. Now I'm curious as to what you eat, so I'm going to have to figure out the channel to find this information out.
Right.
Any other keys that you care to share that you think are valuable and important?
Yeah, there is one, and this is something I'm working on right now for the Canadian area. You're familiar with CVAC?
No.
Okay, CVAC, which is a short form for a chamber. It's like a clamshell that you sit in, and it elevates you up in elevation with it's hypobaric.
Okay.
Because the raves are all hyperbaric right now. Now, hyperbaric has its place for sure. I know that it's being used in different specific areas. People are learning more about it. But for you and me who want to become high performance the longer we go forward as far as our oxygen system. So we're unplugged, all the receptor sites are able to receive oxygen through our lungs efficiently. We want to be like a high performance mountain climber that can go to the top of Mount Everest and have all the oxygen you need out of the thinnest air possible. So this machine allows you to do that. Within 6 months, you're a person who can literally climb a mountain without ever having climbed a mountain and get all the oxygen you want. The more important thing than that is that in this atmosphere where you and I are here on the ground, we get way more oxygen out of the air we're breathing than anyone else around us, because our bodies are conditioned over that 6-month period to get more efficient use of oxygen by deprivation. So you just sit in the chamber for 20 minutes. It very much deprives you of oxygen in there. It exercises you. It takes you up to 4,000 feet above sea level and brings you back down to 2,000. Every 5 seconds, it's changing. And within a few weeks, you can get up to 12,000. Within a few months, you can get up to 20,000. Within 6 months, you can go to 24,000. So it takes you right up to 24,000, brings you back to 2, up to 22, down to 4, up to 20, down to 5, and so on for 20 minutes. So it's taking the pressure of this atmosphere, which is high pressure where we're standing, takes it off, puts it back in. Your eustachian tubes completely get exercised, so you never even have to plug your nose when you're doing the descent. When you first start, you got to be looking at the monitor and you're doing the descent or your head swimming. So it takes you from this state here with getting just a minor amount of oxygen out of the air to getting the maximum, because hypoxia is the thing that eventually kills people if they don't deal with it. So the removal of hypoxia is a master key.
So do you have this chamber at home, or do you have to go to a facility for that?
In the process of ordering and getting it in Canada. Right now, there are very few in Canada. I don't even know of any in Toronto other than people's private homes. There are about 150,000 US, plus the shipping and install. But it's something that you can share the cost of with people locally. They all chip in, and all of a sudden it's super affordable. And then how it changes you so dynamically to change your body into that high performance within 6 months. What is that worth? Right.
Priceless. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So we're going to have one out in Coburg. I would love to partner with somebody in the Toronto area where people could use it, because just nobody knows about it. The company itself doesn't even market itself very well in my books. It's like, get to the point, guys. It's not about just sitting in a chamber and thinking it's going to be cool. When I first heard about it, I met a woman named Heather, and she had rheumatoid arthritis. She got it when she was 26 after her second child. So she was genetically predisposed to this very bad. And all her knuckles on all her hands, her shoulders, her elbows were just balled right up. It was a severe case. And her husband had to help her get her arms moving and hands moving in the morning, every morning. They had 2 children. And within 2 years of that, she found out about CVAC. She went, well, what's it going to do for me? Well, it's going to get oxygen, and it's going to help you, and it could even help your body get rid of that problem you've got. And that took 6 months. I met her at the 6-month period. She had one little bump on this knuckle, and that was the last one that was showing up in her body. And another couple months later, that was gone completely. And so I thought, well, how could it didn't heal that? It just brought the body's oxygen levels, because that was what her genetic expression was, to express rheumatoid arthritis with a poor amount of oxygen only at 26 years old. So, yeah.
Wow. Pretty cool. I always learn something new. I love it. Now you've got a company that offers products and has developed and researched products, as we've talked about earlier. And every time I meet you, there's something new and cool that you've developed or are seeing amazing results with. I'd love
Mhm.
for you to share a little bit more about some of the products that Activation provides. And one of them is the magnesium oil, which is a fantastic product. And I know you've got iodine, you've the phytoplankton. What are
Mhm.
there? Maybe walk us through some of your favorite products, and I'd love for you to share how we can learn more as well.
For sure. So it all started with the marine phytoplankton. That is our core product. That's actually produced in Europe and blended in Canada. So we are a fully certified primary manufacturing facility here in Coburg, and we ship direct to consumer all over the world as much as we can. So we have an instant feedback. And taking that model rather than going to the distributor to the health food store like everybody else, we found out what worked and what didn't work. So we have many products that came along that I found out didn't work, and a few that did. So the second one that came after the phytoplankton, which is called Oceans Alive, we call it EASE. And that's a transdermal magnesium, that's magnesium chloride hexahydrate. It is definitely the most unique type of magnesium oil on earth. It goes very comfortably into the skin, very rapidly in. We have an intellectual property around that that allows that to happen, rather than just melting magnesium chloride into water and spraying it in your skin, which is what pretty much everything else is. And then from there, we got into seed oils. Now, I am not a proponent of seed oils in the diet at all. I avoid seed oils like the plague. I don't like any of the stuff. I call them adulterated seed oils. They're jammed into everything.
Mm.
Whether it's canola oil or sunflower oil or however they do it, safflower, it doesn't matter. Those oils are not, the body doesn't even want that much oil. And that's not the kind of fats. But I found out there are therapeutic seed oils that are very concentrated, and they actually alleviate the gluing, gumming up effect that the other seed oils in the world cause. So they allow, like I said, cleansing, nourishing kind of a thing that happens. And one of the first ones was black cumin seed oil. One of the first ones I ever heard of. I was like, what's that stuff?
Mhm.
And I started hearing about it in 2010, but we never got into it. Then I heard about it more in 2013, 14. And so now we have had 10 years of producing black cumin seed oil, which is Nigella sativa. And that is a whole body tonic. It is absolutely trending now. Like, it's definitely catching a wave. And it originated from the Middle East in the different religions over there, that the people found out how powerful it was. They literally even state that it cures everything but death. I don't like to make any cure claims, because I think the body heals itself if it just keeps clean and nourished. But it has an external effect on your skin, your hair, for blemishes. It has a major dental effect if you swish with it for a minute and swallow it. And internally in the body, it has all these different components that are synergistically combined. The thymoquinone is the big one, but it has a bunch of other things within the oil that it needs to go with to make it work. And it's like a whole body tonic. We have so many testimonies that have come in on that product over the years, over the last 10 years. And then I watched all these other people get into the market with it. But a lot of them are not certified organic. We go to nth degree to make sure the farmer we're buying from, which is actually in India, which is the best soil on earth, as it turns out, real, true certified organic, tested every batch. It's the best quality, the best quantity. They don't heat it when they harvest it. They harvest it naturally. They pack it really well. We get it shipped on containers over here to Canada. When it comes to our factory, we have a very special technology that presses oil out of seeds without damaging it. Everybody else is all worried about speed of production and, the traditional cold expeller press, which damages the oil. And we found out about a very proprietary way to press oil where it does not damage the oil at all. And it's also packed in Miron glass. So if you go back to ancient times, the dark violet color had a very powerful energetic and spiritual effect. And so the only company in the world that we ever found that has those bottles is Miron, M-I-R-O-N. They're out of Europe. And so that's what we pack all of our oils in. So that puts the proper energy into it. So the basic, what I want to make sure I was doing is that oil that's inside the seed in those plants in India is the exact same quality of oil that you're receiving inside of a bottle. And there's no damage. And there's like 15 steps to ensure that happens along the way. And no, we can't do the high volume like everybody else. And hey, other black seed oils in the market are good. So, but it goes good, great, greater, greatest. And I thought if we could perform at the greatest level, then we should. It might be higher cost for us, but so what? It's all about the end user experience and benefit. So that opened up a whole world of seed oils. It's like, okay, that's different. Those are unadulterated, they're therapeutic, and you only need 1 teaspoon a day. And if you're sick, you could do 8 teaspoons a day, but only for 2 days, because otherwise it's doing so much work so fast. So it's one of those things that the laundry list is very long of all the benefits. And so that opened up this whole seed oil thing. Then we found out about amaranth oil, coriander seed oil. Like if you ever get like a stomach flu symptom, or you think you might got a food poisoning or something disagreed with you, 2 droppers of coriander oil, 15 minutes later, you're clear. I've never seen anything work so fast. Everybody should have a bottle of that whenever they travel, whenever they go anywhere, as a little insurance thing. But it's also great for gut health. Deals with heavy metals and candida overgrowth. Amaranth oil is just some magical stuff. I don't know what on earth this thing is doing, but when you put it in your mouth, it's 8% squalene, but it gives you energy. But you wouldn't think it would get energy from it, but it's huge energy from this. Just 1 dropper a day. Plus you can use it on your skin. And then we have a 5 seed blend for the new user who's just trying to get the benefits of all the seed oils, all certified organic, all therapeutic. So that opened up another world of this thing that we didn't know about, that we've now experienced fully for 10 years. And then one other thing I think I shared some with you recently was the Solaris.
Yes.
Right. So that's an Ayurvedic blend that came from ancient times, the exact ratios. But this is not an essential oil. This is an entire plant extract. So there's no part of the plant that is not pulling all the medicinals out of it. And it has all the plant esters, and it's extremely concentrated, and it immediately dissolves into water and disappears when you put it in. So no oil does that. So the whole processing of this allows it to be fully emulsified, instantly available. And what I have noticed lately, I didn't come up with this idea either, but a friend of mine said, hey man, try putting some Solaris in the black cumin seed oil. So get your spoonful, your teaspoon, put 2 drops of Solaris in there, swish it around and watch what happens. And you watch it break right down. And when you take it, it goes in totally differently. Becomes way more bioavailable. It's also a beauty product because the black cumin is known for really healthy skin and hair. And you put it in there, just 1 drop on a little bit at nighttime, stir it up, put it on your skin, got a totally different glow. So but Solaris has internal components where it removes the salt off of the cell wall to allow nutrition to get in better. It basically improves cellular function. It also deletes heavy metals without any Herxheimer, no healing effect of the removal of the heavy metals, where you get a lot of chelators can be harsh and then repopulate with heavy metals in a different part of your body. This turns it into inert matter. And it also works on dangerous, life-threatening things that can show up in your skin. We will not name it, but you put it straight on and it will blow it up, and 2 weeks later it peels off dry and is gone. Things like cold sores, you got to knock it down 5 times. So 5 times distilled water with the Solaris, and you just put it on just gently, cold sore goes away. If you put it on full strength, it blows it up and makes a mess. So there's these little things we've learned. Also for dental, you can put it in your toothbrush, helps immensely with getting rid of plaque because it deals with all the bacteria and just keeps your bacterial environment very healthy in your mouth. It can be used as eye drops. Just dilute it way down. 2 drops in 10 mils of distilled water or pure water to start with, and just put a few 4 or 5 drops in your eyes. Wonderful for all kinds of things like cataracts and different things that people notice that they just dissolve over time. It takes several months. And we don't make any medical claims on it. We just had testimonies from many people that they didn't have to have a cataract operation after using it.
Amazing. You also are a big proponent of iodine. So tell us a little bit more about iodine and what you found that its benefits are for cellular health and just overall wellness.
Yeah, well, I had been approached many times with different iodine products over the years. We actually came out with an Atomidine type product back in 2010, and it's very strong, and it's supposed to be like a monatomic iodine. And the person making it for us accidentally spilled some on their arm and immediately washed it off 2 seconds later, and it blew them out. Like they got full alopecia. It was brutal. It really messed with them.
Mm.
And I realized, hold it, there's some dangerous component to iodine that we don't want to have anything to do with. I discontinued it immediately at that time. I was in approach back in 2017 to 2019 about a technology that can convert an I2 molecular iodine molecule into a gas, which is infused into medical grade water. And it's a very, very low dose with a super high volume. And that is a totally safe product. You cannot harm yourself with that. You'd have to guzzle bottles of it to do any damage, and nobody would ever do that. You just eat a teaspoon a day of this. But what happens when you get the pure iodine molecule without any of the other stuff? Because things like Lugol's and all, they have their benefit, but there's a ton of other things in there, and they got the skull and crossbones on it. So we're like, no. I want the pure form, because every cell in your body requires iodine as a fuel. And I started experiencing that back in 2019, 2020, before we rolled it out. And I noticed that my brain function went way up, and just my overall energy and body feel was good. And then I found out that it also converts over to iodide in your body automatically, because when it reacts with fungus or heavy metals or bacteria that shouldn't be there, it converts over. And then that gets picked up by your bloodstream and feeds your thyroid, because your thyroid can only use iodide. And so it doesn't, subject you to potassium iodide, which I don't like at all. It's just pure iodide that your body decides how much it wants. And what you don't need, it just excretes. And then your thyroid can produce T3, T4 iodine hormones from that, which is good for your brain function and your gut health. And it's, general immune system. So this is one of these fuels that I think are an absolute must-have. It's a daily thing you do for your life. If people have very serious issues like Crohn's or something like that, they can dose it for a little while. And then when they're done that, they can do their probiotic, modalities and things. But it's a daily maintenance for people to just brighten up everything. There was a study that showed that women get fibroid cysts because of a lack of iodine. And so they take the iodine and the fibroid cysts tend to go away. But it's not a cure for fibroid cysts. The body just needs fuel. So you don't have to, I don't know why women get fibroid cysts otherwise, other than it's a lack of iodine. But so it's fuel, a very important fuel, but it's the safe version, which is low dose, high volume. Carpet bombs everything when you drink it. And it tastes great. It's actually refreshing. You've had a taste of it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just beautiful.
So Ian, I'm on your website, and I want to send people there. And you've got a variety of different products. So if I were to go there as a new practitioner, or even somebody who's listening to this who may not be a practitioner but is loving everything that they're hearing today, and maybe figuring out, okay, what's the stack that I should start with? What are perhaps the products that I would want to order, get started with? And maybe you can walk me through what a day of dosing and timing looks like, so that
Right.
I can receive the maximum benefit. And let's just assume my goal is I'm generally pretty healthy. I know we're not using any of these products to treat anything, just to be very clear. But I'm generally healthy, and I want to stay that way for as long as possible. What would a day in the life of using activation products look like?
Well, the first stop that I often get practitioners to be aware of is there's the different components. There's the detoxification portion of it. But it was interesting, all the products are complementing each other, because they all actually do fuel you in one way or another. And some of them are straight up detox on top of that. So, what we always started people with was the marine phytoplankton, oceans alive, and the E's. That's like a very easy initial one. You just put drops in the water or your juice, drink it, and then spray the E's on, twice a day, or minimum once. And then they'll see all the different results, from brain power, more joyful mental energy, deeper sleeps, dialing into their endocrine system correctly with the autonomic nervous parasympathetic. And that's kind of like the beginner step. It's the feel good stuff. It's like, okay, that actually really feels good. Good. Okay, I love that. Everybody loves to feel good, because nothing feels as good as feeling good. And then you go from there to the black cumin. The black cumin is going to be the next entrance of a very important nutrient, a fat. as well as a spice, as well as all the different medicinal components. That's going to start to support the body's ability to not have to use so much energy to fight off all the stuff that we're getting hit with. And they see a profound and just a gentle amount, like maybe half a teaspoon a day after a meal. Swish it in the mouth, gargle it and swallow it, then build up to a teaspoon a day and maintain that for a period of time. If they're dealing with serious heavy metal issues, fungal infections, they're going to go to the perfect iodine first and the Solaris. You never take them together. The only time you take Solaris with anything is with the oils, because the Solaris is very powerful. You want the iodine to go in, it needs to go in on an empty stomach, 1 teaspoon. And you can put it in water and drink it down, no problem. You just don't want to let it sit around because it's a gas and it will evaporate out. And then you wait 20 minutes only. Within 20 minutes, that whole thing is in your system. You take 10 drops of Solaris, and that's going to go in and mop up anything that's residual left over from the iodine and also support your cellular function. And then you just wait another 20 minutes. So you pick that time during the day, maybe 2 hours after you've had lunch or 2 hours after breakfast. That's when you do this. Take the iodine, wait 20 minutes, take the Solaris, wait 20 minutes, you're good to go. And that is going to have a profound effect. On males, definitely. On females, even more than males, for whatever reason. Dealing with urinary issues, dealing with all kinds of weird stuff that you wouldn't expect. It's a super potent product. And then also, I never mentioned the iodine. You can use it on your skin. It helps skin become much more youthful because it's the body's nutrient it requires to have healing of the skin. You know, if you have a cut or a bruise or a burn, it speed heals. The body speed heals because it has the fuel, and it keeps everything disinfected. So that's those two together like that. And then again, Solaris with the black cumin. And after that, we have other products like that deal with uric acid, you know, to make sure you're not digesting the purines out of the food, because it blocks the enzyme that goes after the purines. That's another Ayurvedic blend. And then we have Perfect Immune. Perfect Immune is interesting. All it does is get your entire mucous membrane system, which is huge, throughout your body, internally and externally. You produce about 1.5 liters of mucus per day. And it makes sure that your whole mucous membrane system is nice and fluid, is not getting congested at all. And so that keeps everything moving. So you don't get bound up or have some kind of a reaction where you have a flu symptom or head cold or chest cold or whatever. And so that's why it's called Perfect Immune, because it supports the immune system. But that's mucous membranes. So that's another profoundly effective product. And that comes from South Africa. It's a geranium plant root that they do the extract from, and it grows wild. And they've been doing this. This was discovered early 1900s, was the first record we found of it. And there was a whole book written about people who were dying in Britain at the time. And this was a discovery, and anybody who used it got well. And the government blocked it and said, you can't use that. They're like, why not? This is like a geranium root extract. Are you kidding? And so they wrote a book on it. It was called The Death of 150,000 People. Yeah, and that we actually have I have an original copy of that book.
What a world we live in.
Yeah, interesting place.
And these products are available in Canada and in the US. If practitioners who are listening to this are interested in becoming wholesalers, is that an option, or do you recommend becoming affiliates? How would that work if we want to carry these products in our office or recommend them to our clients?
Right. It's an either or. We have both affiliate programs that we pay commission if we drop ship for you. We also have a very good pricing program as a practitioner if you want to stock some inventory where you know that you don't want to be tying up a bunch of money on inventory. So there's a very, very good price list. And there's not really hardly any MOQs either, like minimum order quantities. We try to support everybody at whatever level they're at, and they get a great price. So you can, at least sell it to your client, and we don't lowball it in the market or anything like that. We keep the prices consistent, and they're all super affordable as well. Like there's nothing we have that's exorbitantly expensive, and that's an important thing. And they're available in Canada. We have natural product numbers on pretty much everything. And in the US, of course, is available there. Also Australia, as well as the UK. We have fulfillment centers now in all those countries. because we wanted to keep the shipping costs down because it's really crazy as soon as you start shipping overseas.
Yeah, it starts adding up pretty quickly. Um, this has been amazing, always enlightening, always inspiring, and I just love our conversations. We'll definitely have to do a part two as you pick up new knowledge and capabilities and new skills. And I'll be making sure we share the link. For those of you listening, it's activationproducts.com. I believe you sell them on Amazon as well.
Mhm.
Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, we have
Okay.
our products on Amazon.
You can find the products on Amazon, or you can go directly to Ian's online store, whether you're in the US or Canada and other countries. Either set up a wholesale account if you have a physical practice or want to use the products for yourself and your family, or you can become an affiliate and promote these products once you've used them for yourself and experienced the benefit as well. So amazing, Ian. I know that there's so many questions I could ask you. Is there something I didn't ask you today that you'd love to share with us?
I think we covered pretty much everything. The one thing I always encourage everyone to do is to encourage yourself and build your enthusiasm. It's up to you to build your enthusiasm, and don't ever let anything get you down because it doesn't need to. In fact, all these challenges that we face, especially over the last few years, it made us so much stronger and happier because we knew there was an agenda, but we were just going forward, in fact, more than ever. So I think we're all here to support each other, and we're here to serve each other. And I think if we all have that attitude, and the life's like just amazing, let's have a good time. Let's get some people healthy.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend. So much love, so much gratitude. And here's to your continued success and contribution. And to all of us practitioners out there, we appreciate the work from all of us practitioners. We appreciate the work you're doing. And for those of you that are listening, be sure to check out Ian's products, activationproducts.com. Try them out for yourself, experience the profound shifts and benefits. I use these products myself, and the ease is one of my favorites. It creates measurable changes in my sleep score. So thank you for that amazing gift to all of us. And again, thank you for your time today. I appreciate you. And I'll see you in Austin in a few weeks.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sachin. It's been a pleasure. And we look forward to our next conversations.
Sounds awesome. Have a great day.
Make it a good one.